afternoon, everyone. I feel highly honored to be present here, to be invited here and to do this small presentation. I can start with my own journey, but let me first say briefly the work I do. We protect as an organization, as an NGO, started by me and my colleagues, Agnes. We provide legal advocacy and litigation support to women survivors of domestic and sexual violence. So when we talk about women who are undergoing this kind of violations, the most important thing that strikes us is one level there is the violence, but the other level there is the economic disempowerment. When we say women don't have property rights, it actually results in their vulnerability. And in the earlier session, we were talking about ownership, the architecture, women in board meetings where women are absent. That is at a very higher level. If we come to the lower level, this disempowerment of women, lack of property rights, lack of economic rights, actually results in them becoming vulnerable to domestic or sexual violence. That is where the transition takes place. And we need to connect the dots. This is where we need to connect the dots. So by my own journey, by my own experience, I have faced this vulnerability. What it is to be totally disempowered. What it is to be in a very violent and subordinated marriage and raise children within that. So the fear that you experience, and not only you experience but you transmit to your children, scars their entire life and it remains with them. So when I became a lawyer, and actually it was a long journey from where I started after being 13 years in this violent marriage, coming out with the support of the women's movement and then educating myself. I was only very minimally educated. So I had to educate myself, become a graduate, become a lawyer and legal professional. And moving on from there, it was a long struggle. But having survived that, one has emerged much stronger. And one has emerged as a very powerful person whose voice is heard in society today. So this is where I have moved. But in all this, when I started, women did not have property rights. Women did not have a right of residence in their matrimonial home. It was presumed that the home belonged to the husband. And he had the power to throw the woman out. It is in this realm of being powerless that I identified that this is where the struggle has to be. So even before the right to reside in the matrimonial home was recognized by law, we started securing injunctions in court preventing the husband from dispossessing the wife. It's a very basic concept, but it was not accepted either by the police or the judiciary. And everybody thought that a woman can be thrown out. Everybody thought that man is the owner of the house. He has the sole ownership. And she has it's not in our name, it's not even in the joint name. So he can do what he wants in that house. Now, if the woman was married for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and had not worked, and due to the marriage and due to her domestic responsibilities, even if she was working, she had to give up a job, raise the children, contributed to the homemaking process, and thereby help the husband to increase his wealth. But her non economic contribution as a contribution as a kind was not recognized at all. And I identified this as one of the major problems because of the condition that I was in. When I was thrown out with my children, I was literally on the street. And from there I had to raise myself and get my education, get my job, educate my children, etc. And that's when I recognized and realized that this is where we need to work substantially. Now, fortunately, this right is recognized in law. We have the Prevention of Domestic Violence Act, which recognizes the woman's right to stay in the matrimonial home, and it's easier today to get injunction in the court. The judges recognize it, the police recognize it, so we have a general acceptance. The NGOs recognize it. Earlier, even the NGOs used to endorse the concept that it is not your house and you can't stay there. But today, things have changed. And I fully endorse this whole concept of women not just owning property, but laying their claim to the place where they actually stay. That a right of residence is very, very important. We recognize in law a woman's right to maintenance. That if she's married, she's not working, in law, this is recognized since like 100, 200 years. But the maintenance she gets is so paltry, so small an amount, and half the time it is not paid. And with that, in a city like Bombay, you cannot live, you cannot reside. Even on a rental basis, you cannot get a house. And most of it, single women find it extremely difficult to rent a place. I mean, the society is not kind to single women. So they, either it is the parental support they have to get, or they have to continue to live in that home because they have nowhere else to go and become more vulnerable to women facing to the domestic violence they face. So it is this right. So I'm very happy that I was invited for this panel, for this talk by Homes and Builders, because this is the crux of the matter. While there are lots of seminars talking about domestic violence and women's empowerment, we hardly focus on a right of residence and a matrimonial home, where her contribution is immense. I found it very interesting that all the speakers, when they talked about their work environment and their successes, everyone had something to say about their personal life, their children, their support system, the entire ecosystem in the domestic sphere. You seldom hear men talking about it. When they talk about their professional life and whether they are successful or whether they are expanding, etc., you never say that I have a wife, I have 2 children, and this is my ecosystem that supports me. It's so invisibilized. And you don't see a single woman who doesn't mention it. And this contrast, I find it everywhere, very glaring, and I found it here too, very glaring, that every woman mentioned her home eco-support system through which she is able to succeed. It is true for men also. They have an ecosystem to support them, but never think they have to acknowledge it. They never think they have to state it. I have this wife who's supporting me. I have a mother-in-law or mother or somebody at home who's helping me in my career. They never acknowledge this. And I found the contrast extremely interesting. And I think all of us need to be aware. I'm talking about the men here, or men who are listening, that they also need to acknowledge this. They need to say, this is the home environment from which I come. I go home and I get a meal, hot meal prepared for me. I have the children who are being raised and they're doing well in school, they have a good career, etc. Because there was somebody to direct them and guide them. So this contrast is prevalent everywhere. And in the situation of domestic violence, what a woman does, she has to, apart from the court battle, etc., which is very, very taxing. I do not know how many of you have gone to court. More important, how many of you have given evidence and been subjected to cross-examination in a court of law. And what a traumatic experience that is. And imagine a survivor of sexual abuse. And now we know that most of the abuse that happens at home and not on the street. And the abuser is your own relative. We heard about fathers selling daughters in the previous talk. But there are far more others who abuse their children, sexually abuse their children. Young children, 6 years, 10 years, 12 years, and accidentally this case comes out. It comes out mainly when there is a health problem with this girl and she's taken to the hospital. And there she's found to be pregnant, which is not even aware that she's pregnant or what is sex. And there the fact comes out that she's abused by their own father. So our role here is to support that girl through this legal journey. At the age of 10 or 12, the entire legal journey, your home environment is not safe. So where do you go? You go to a shelter home. So entire uprooting happens. Your education suffers. Because of this, you may have to shift the home or shift your place of residence to somewhere else where people don't know about this, and then follow the case in court. And then you give this evidence in court. And be subject yourself to cross-examination by an astute criminal lawyer who is very, very, very well experienced. In a courtroom full of men, the judge is male, the prosecutor is male, the people in the court are male, and in front of them she has to give evidence and narrate this experience, which is very private. I mean, nobody likes to talk about sex, because even if it is consensual sex, in an open room, in an open environment, and in that she gives evidence, and there is nobody for her. The public prosecutor is for the state, not for her. So we were present in the court. We prepare her for what is going to happen. Like for some children, we cannot even explain in terms of a comparative classroom, that this is a teacher, this is the principal, this is where you sit, etc. Because they have never gone to school. They may be migrant, may not be fluent in Marathi or Hindi, they may be speaking Tamil or some other language. And then she has to understand and give evidence and be judged on that, and whether conviction happens or acquittal happens. When the acquittal happens of the accused person, she is termed as a liar in her own community, in her own environment, because she is not able to prove the case in court. In terms of family abuse, father abuse, etc., even her own mother doesn't support her, because the accused person is the father and he is the breadwinner of the family. These are the situations in which you handle these cases. So these two areas, domestic violence and sexual violence, they are very different. Domestic violence is it's a civil right, and sexual violence is in a criminal court. So you study these totally different court procedures, and we have a whole group of young lawyers, young interns working with us, and it is they who follow the case, and it's very traumatic for them. They spend sleepless nights dealing with this because all your entire belief system in the family, the goodness of the family gets destroyed here. You don't know what is good, what is safe, where the safe is, safe environment for you to raise yourself, your children, etc. So we have learned a lot in this experience. Our organization is 30 years old, 32 now, 32 years old, and we have grown immensely over the years. We have reached out to a large number of women, providing this legal support, legal and social support to women, helping them skill building, helping them of their rebuilding of their lives, and apart from the legal case, also socially finding a new school, finding a new residence, etc. And what is lacking in our system, in the criminal case, is this social support for victims, social support in the community, social support in the courtrooms, social support by following the entire case. And this is where we need to step in. And I'm glad we've been able to survive and reach out and strengthen and empower women who were facing dire situation. And it is all stemmed up from my own experience. And I've written a book on that, my story, our story of rebuilding broken lives.